before we get into the main body of the podcast, Gather Round. We discussed it before the week and brought up what we thought some doubts about what the week might bring and some good points of what the week might bring. But now that it's happened, Jake, it's kind of been declared a raging success by all parts. But any thoughts on the concept as a whole?
Oh, I thought it was fantastic. I really did. And, our debate club column this week, where Rowan Connolly and I spoke about the concept and how we improve it going forward, I actually struggled to come up with ways to make it better. I thought it was really well planned out, well executed. The fact that it was in school holidays meant kids, families could go, and then it allowed for more fans. I love the double headers. How cool was it seeing like the Dogs warming up at 3/4 time of the Melbourne Essendon game? I just thought it was a great round of footy. I thought it was really cool. One thing that I did read this morning, and I guess it got me thinking, was what happens when there's a 19th team? Does someone miss out?
Did see that something.
Because that's likely to happen. And the Gather Round, I know we've got SA locked in for 3 years, but it's not as if we're going to get to the end of the 3-year contract and then give up on this. This is going to be something that continues on, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So that's something to kind of look for. The other thing I like the idea of is a player of the Gather Round. So whatever you want to call it, but a player of the round. And I think the nomination for me would be Tom Papley. He was incredible for the Swans. He was the match winner.
Yeah, he was. Christian, any thoughts in terms of a product broadly, but also just the future, what they can do better, perhaps?
Yeah, probably to me, watching it on TV, the double header games, how they were sort of, I think it was one ticket got you to the two games.
Yes.
So there was probably, again, don't know the percentage, maybe 25-30% of the people that only stayed for the one game. So either there was empty seats for the Essendon-Melbourne game, or there was empty seats during the Port Bulldogs game. Again, watching on TV, you want all of those games to be full in that capacity. Hearing it's a sellout, so you want to see full stadiums. But overall, pretty jealous being a Victorian, thinking how we've never really had that. We get a lot of foot. And
we just have 5 games a week.
I heard someone sort of talking about from Perth saying they love to come to Melbourne every couple of weeks each season because they can go to the football on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday and see 3 AFL games, regardless of who's playing, and they don't get to do that when you're living in Perth. And I know we get football 3 days a week, but we've never had all 18 clubs come and play in our city. We've seen it during COVID and things like that, and sort of just watched and thought, be good to have that here. But again, Victorian-centric bias, we get enough footy, so happy for all the other states to have it. But yeah, I consider it a success.
It's quite interesting now because the AFL has 2 options. It can stay in somewhere like SA, and we know obviously it is staying there for the next few years. But South Australia, Western Australia, they're already, that's footy heartland as well. You're not necessarily going there to grow the game. So part of it is, do you take this to New South Wales? Do you take this to Queensland and try and grow the game more up in these areas, which is important for the sport? The problem is it's not going to come across as much of a spectacle and a carnival atmosphere on TV because the crowds won't be there in the beginning. So it's really interesting.
In somewhere like Queensland, you think?
Yeah, it's just not going to be there at the beginning. It's just not.
You think during Victorian school holidays that people won't want to get out of the cold, wet,
There will be some, but we can still look at the data, and the data or the data, Christian, we can look at it and we can see that still 2/3 of the tickets that were sold during the Gather Round were to South Australians.
Yeah.
So if 1/3 is everybody else, that's not going to be enough. So
well, now that they've already locked it in, right? So Gather Round was a concept that came into fruition kind of late last year. Now that's been locked in already for the next 3 years. We know it's going to be in Adelaide.
Yeah. People
have longer to plan as well. So I think you'll find that people will start booking stuff now. There's they said Victorian school holidays. So there's 3 weekends, but they'd probably pick the middle weekend. So you kind of already know what the dates might be. Off the top of my head, I don't have kids, so I don't know. But there's you have a brief, like a small idea of when the window will be.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and book your accommodation now. You can go ahead and book your flights pretty soon too, because flights open up a year in advance for most airlines. So I think you'll find that there'll be more time to plan it, and you'll get more people from interstate going, if that makes sense. I think it can only grow from here.
It can only grow, but my point is that if it is going to, if we have it in South Australia for the next 3 years, and then that 4th year it's taken to Queensland.
Yep.
It's just not going to be the same because you're not going to have the amount of Queenslanders that embrace it like the South Australians would or like the West Australians would.
Well, that's a challenge. That's
just the reality. So the AFL has a choice to make. Does it keep it in the AFL heartland areas where you're going to have the crowds there, where it's going to look great and it's going to be popular and fun?
And I would. I know that's probably not the way businesses and they work, sort of always trying to grow and go into new markets, but pay back the South. As I said, the the Perth fans that do come over here and travel to Victoria just to see 3 games of
I'm
football,
not
I think
saying
they
there's
deserve a Gather
I'm not
Round
saying
next
there's a
week.
right or wrong way to do it, but it'll be interesting to see how how it plays out, because I do think in time this idea, this concept is something that should be shared around the country, and not necessarily, for Christian's point before, I don't necessarily think it has to be played in Victoria. I think Victoria could be the state that sits out, because it does get footy throughout the year, so much of it. But I think it should be going to Western Australia. I think it should be going to New South Wales. I think it should be going to Queensland.
I think that the fact that you've got a stadium, so let's just say Queensland comes in 3 years' time and puts its hands up for the next iteration. You've got a stadium on the Gold Coast which hosts how many people?
What is it, 30, 20,
25?
25, 30?
I reckon that's a lot easier to sell out than a 50,000 seat Adelaide Oval.
Well, the 8,000 is easy to sell out too.
Well, exactly. So I think you're not looking. It's not like you've got a massive cavernous stadium that you're worrying about filling. I don't know what stage the Gabba redevelopment will be at that point as well. So maybe there's also some byplay to play out there as well.
Yeah.
Interesting times. Gather round. Tick. Overall.
Yeah, big tick. I think it was a great start. And look, the NRL fans and the rugby fans will be quick to tell you that it's not a totally unique AFL idea, and I don't think anyone's claiming that. But I think the way it was executed was really well done, and the crowds were great. The games, for the most part, were good.
Yeah.
The rain, though, was it Saturday night, that rain? I can't remember the last time I've seen rain like that at a football game. Like, not in the peak of winter as well.
It's funny how, the main broadcast cameras, you kind of go, oh, has the rain slowed down a bit?
And then you get a ground level shot.
Yeah. Anyway,